Hi, if anyone's there, my name's Aleta. I'm just trying to copy a link into the comment bar, but I can't work out how to do it because I'm on a Mac and I'm not used to a Mac. If anyone can tell me how to copy an address on a Mac, that would be very helpful. But if not, we'll have to just do without it. So if anyone's there, if you'd like to introduce yourself, just put your name in the comment bar. That would be very nice. And this is Buddhism for beginners. This is the third class in this little introductory course. There's another 2 classes, maybe 3 classes to go. They've extended this last course to make it finish the same time as the Vajrayana Institute term. So this course is based on Buddhism in a nutshell, which was an introductory course to Buddhism designed by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who is an amazing teacher and the spiritual director of Vajrayana Institute. So we're going to just start with a short little arrival meditation just to help us to transition from what may have been a busy, stressy sort of a day. Maybe you've got a busy, stressy sort of a mind at the moment. So we'll just do a little meditation to help us to arrive in the present moment, wherever we are right now. And we will give our body and our mind an opportunity to settle and relax a bit. So just get comfortable in your seat or lying on the floor or on your cushion, whatever's most comfortable for you. And just take a couple of deep breaths to start all the way into your belly if you can. And then just letting your breath flow into its natural rhythm. And your eyes can be closed, which may help to cut out any distraction of visual things around you. Or if you prefer, you could have your eyes just slightly open and the head just directed slightly down as if you're looking at a spot on the floor about a metre in front of you. And just feeling the points of contact of our body with the solid, secure, stable surface holding it. Allowing the chair or the cushion or the floor to take the full weight of your body. And just seeing if we can place aside any thoughts of what came before, putting aside any worries that we may have had, any plans, any to-do list, anything that's been going over and over in our mind. We can just place these concerns aside just for this class. And we can always pick them up again at the end of the class if we so desire. And just for now, seeing if we can be a person in this moment with no history, no future. And just developing positive motivation for being here tonight, for meditating right now. thinking of our own personal reason for looking into the Buddhist teachings. And then we see if we can expand that positive motivation outwards so that any benefit that we may achieve from meditating and from listening to the Buddha's teachings may help not just us, but that it may help all those we come in contact with as well. And then we could spread that motivation out even further so that through our efforts we may help every sentient being, every person, every animal, every insect, every being that has a mind. And just noticing how the body is in this moment. Noticing any areas of tension that you're holding on to, any discomfort, any pain in the body. Not trying to fix it, just being aware. And see if it's possible to you to imagine breathing into those areas of tension or discomfort or pain. Imagine that you can breathe into that area. And imagine the breath suffusing the area with your loving concern for yourself. And as you imagine breathing out from that area, just imagine letting go of the tightness or the discomfort or the pain. Just imagining letting go with each out breath. If you can't release the tightness or the discomfort, maybe you can just release a little of it. Or maybe you can just imagine what it would feel like to be able to release it. Just being kind and gentle to ourselves, nurturing ourselves, looking after ourselves. And now just gently putting our attention on the breath wherever we notice it the most in this moment. It might be at the nostrils or on the upper lip. It might be the rise and fall of the chest or the rise and fall of the belly. Or it might be the complete wave-like flow of the breath. Wherever you notice the breath the most in this moment, just gently placing our attention there. And just observing each in and each out breath. Not trying to control the breath in any way, just noticing how it is. And when the mind wanders, don't worry about it. Be glad that you noticed that the mind wandered. That means you're being mindful. When you notice the mind has become distracted from the breath, gently, kindly bring the attention back to the breath, to the present moment. Just this moment, just this breath. Now, when you notice the mind is distracted, just gently label whatever the distraction is, like thinking, listening, feeling. After you've labeled, gently bring the attention back again to the breath, just allowing that distraction to fall away. We don't have to pay attention to our thoughts or any other distraction. If we don't cling to them, hold on to them, they will just rise and fall away again. Each time, just gently bringing the attention back to the breath. Just this breath, just this moment. Now, just noticing the state of the body in this moment without judgment, just noticing how it is, noticing the state of the mind in this moment. There's no right or wrong, it's just your experience. becoming aware of the places of contact of our body with that secure, solid surface holding it. Noticing the touch of our clothes on our skin and the air on our skin. Noticing the noises inside the room. The noises outside the room. And when you're ready, feeling joyful and relaxed, gently open your eyes and give your body a stretch. Hi, Crystal. Vince is not with you. It's nice to have you here. I was going to say nice to see you, but I can't. But I know you're there. I'm just taking my slippers off because I'm hot. And then I'll be too cold. But that's just the nature of suffering, which is the first noble truth. So last week, we started talking about the Four Noble Truths, which was the Buddha's first teaching. The Four Noble Truths are the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering, and the truth of the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. And last week we briefly expanded on the first two noble truths. So tonight we're going to briefly discuss the second two noble truths, noble truths 3 and 4. But first of all, just a reminder that the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha up here behind me, said that he can't save us from our suffering. We have to do it ourselves. If he could do it, he would, but it's up to us. We each have to do it for ourselves. But the Buddha showed us the way that we can perfect our mind and be free of our suffering. He gave us many, many tools, teachings, methods that we can utilize so that we can perfect our mind just the same way that Buddha Shakyamuni did. He started out just an ordinary being like us, and he attained enlightenment, which is the same as saying that he perfected his mind. And we each have the potential to do that as well. Not just human beings, but every sentient being, every being that has a mind has Buddha nature or the potential to perfect their mind, to become enlightened or awakened as well. So we can use the Buddha's teachings and methods, tools, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. The Buddha attained enlightenment by using these methods, and then he taught the way so that we can follow this path ourselves. So the third truth, the third noble truth, is the truth of cessation of suffering. And last week we said that every sentient being is subject to suffering. in this life, because our mind is not perfect, because we have delusions in our mind, we don't see things clearly, and so suffering is the nature of our life now. But the third noble truth tells us that we can cease this suffering, which is really, really good news. It's possible to become free from suffering because the causes of suffering are in our mind. They're not external. They're not part of our conditions of life. The causes of suffering are in our mind, and the solution is also within our mind. It's possible to eliminate the causes of suffering, freeing our mind of all delusions and negativities. And when this happens, the mind is always in a state of peace and happiness. We no longer experience any sufferings, such as sickness, pain, age, death, fear, etc. And this state of mind is known as nirvana or liberation. The term for nirvana in Tibetan means gone beyond sorrow. So we transcend suffering. It means overcoming all delusions and mental afflictions and the seeds that trigger them. It's overcoming even the potential for those thoughts that cause us to suffer. When conditions ripen, we no longer have the seeds that trigger them by those outside conditions. So we don't have suffering. It's permanent cessation of suffering if we perfect our mind, if we achieve that state of nirvana or liberation. The mind is by nature clear and knowing. All of our emotions, delusions, afflictive thoughts, all of these negativities of mind are fleeting or adventitious. They're not the nature of our mind. And I think it seems logical that if we can achieve some temporary cessation of suffering, which we do in our life, we notice that we're not always suffering. If we can do this temporarily, then by extension, it should be possible to achieve complete cessation of suffering. And if there are any questions or comments at any time, any examples that arise in your mind of what we're talking about, please feel free to comment in the little comment bar there. I really appreciate feedback when I'm presenting these classes, and I really miss having that feedback when I've got real live people in front of me instead of a computer. So it is possible for us to train our mind, to transform our mind, and to achieve cessation of suffering, which is really, really nice to know. The fourth noble truth is the truth of the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. And another term for the cessation of suffering is true, lasting happiness. So this path, all the teachings of the Buddha, are what we need to do to free the mind from our delusions and the karma that arises from us acting on those delusions. This is the cause of our suffering. As I said, the Buddha Shakyamuni, was once an ordinary being like us with delusions and suffering similar to us. And he perfected his mind through these methods. And if we apply joyful effort to practicing these methods in our daily life, then we can achieve perfect mind as well. And like anything that we learn to do, the more we practice, the better we get at it. The more we practice, the quicker we get results, and we notice the results. So it's not just a matter of having to wait until we're enlightened to see some results, some positive results. We do gain benefit as we practice. And it's not always just an upward curve that we're always getting better, better, better. We do have setbacks, but then if we don't give up, we will eventually improve the mind and have less suffering. And it's a path where eventually we can perfect our mind. But it's nice to notice all the benefits that we get along the way. And I certainly benefit from doing my best to practice Buddhism, and often I slip up, often I forget, but I keep coming back to my practice and I do get a lot of benefit from it. So Crystal says only 10 weeks to go till we see each other in person again. 10 weeks, is it? You counted them up, Crystal. I think we're back on the 3rd of August. Is that right, Crystal? When classes will resume at Vajrayana Institute, all going well. We never really know what the future brings, but we are hopeful that at this stage they're saying they're planning for Vajrayana Institute to open again on the 3rd of August, which will be really, really lovely. Yes, it is the 3rd of August. Thanks, Crystal. 10 more Wednesdays. Or 70 more sleeps, maybe 69 more sleeps. Yes. So all these methods that the Buddha taught are practical methods. We are meant to be applying them in our daily life. It's not just an intellectual understanding. We have to put these methods into use, and that's where we get the benefit. That's where the workshop is, as Venerable Robina Corton says. We keep being mindful of what's going on in our mind during the day, and we just test out these methods and see if they help us. If they don't, place them aside. But very, very worthwhile, I think, just at least trying them out. So the Buddhist teachings are known as the Dharma. I use that word a lot. Dharma has different translations of what it means, but one that I like is that Dharma is that which protects us from suffering. They say that Dharma can be compared to a mirror that enables us to see our minds and to recognise which aspects of our minds are unskillful or mistaken and need to be corrected. So we notice what we're thinking, particularly when we have emotional episodes. When the mind's disturbed, just notice what's going on in your mind, what the thoughts are, how you act from those thoughts. And we start to see which thoughts and which actions are not helpful. They're actually harming us and making us suffer more. And when we notice that, we can start to apply some of these more helpful habits which the Buddha gives us, which can lessen suffering and cause happiness. So, a lot of these habits that we've had all our life, we just react in this way because we've done it so many times in that way. It's just purely like instinct, it's just a really strong habit. But the more we're mindful and pay attention to what's going on in the mind and how it's affecting us, and then we can start applying these more helpful ways of looking at things. I said last week, that Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to, I'm sure he does still say, we have to learn to love our problems like ice cream. And I've got to admit that I always thought, yeah, that's a bit beyond me at this stage to love my problems like ice cream. But sometimes now I do actually have a problem, and I think I am starting to love the problems like ice cream. Not all the time, but sometimes. It's when you have a problem, when I have a problem, sometimes now I'm able to see it as a challenge, and a way to learn to know myself better, and an opportunity to be able to practice these tools of the Buddha. So I actually sometimes love my problems like ice cream, but not all the time. But I'll get there. Never give up, never give up, never give up, says the Dalai Lama. This path that leads to the cessation of suffering has dual aspects of wisdom and compassion. And we need to be always working on both of those aspects. They say it's like a bird needs two wings to fly. We need to have wisdom and compassion, or be working on our wisdom and our compassion. This path can be explained in different ways. One of the ways to explain the path to the cessation of suffering is the three principal aspects of the path to enlightenment. And these three principal aspects are renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom of emptiness. Renunciation starts with the strong wish and the determination to be free from suffering. I remember Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to very often say everything begins on the tip of a wish. So we've got to have that wish to be free from suffering before we will do something about it, try to do something about it. It's like if we want to walk out that door to go somewhere else, your legs don't just start walking without you having the thought or the wish to walk out the door first. So every action is preceded by a thought, a wish, and we have to develop that wish to be free from suffering, have a determination about it. So renunciation is not just about giving up all our possessions and people. It starts with that strong determination to be free from suffering. And we are giving up our attachment to things and to people. Renunciation of our attachment to them. So we can enjoy all our possessions and our people, our loved ones. Enjoy them as much as you can. But we just don't become attached to them. Attachment is exaggerating the positive qualities, not seeing things clearly. And we don't cling to these things or these people thinking we need them to be happy. This is all part of renunciation. I can remember Venerable Rabina talking about enjoying our things and not feeling guilty about it. And she gave the example of if you decide to sleep in the morning and you're lying there on your really comfy bed, all warm and cozy, with your cuddly doona around you. She said the ultimate example of neuroticism, is that the word? Neurosis, is lying there, sleeping in, but feeling guilty about it. And that's so true. And that's something that I do a bit. I decide I'm going to do something enjoyable, but I feel guilty about it. And then it's just such a waste of time. So if we decide that we're going to do something for us to enjoy, we can have the attitude that we're doing this to help us to be more relaxed, to help us to be more positive, so that then we can help others. So it's just developing a positive motivation. And then we can enjoy these things without feeling guilty. I mean, it's really important to always be checking our motivation and developing positive, beneficial motivation for all that we do. So when we are renounced, we stop blaming others for our suffering. We see that it's our own mental states that cause us to suffer. And we eventually get to the point where we're sick of suffering. Then we begin to change our behaviour. We're motivated to work on our mind, to practice Dharma, to eliminate our suffering. That's a way of looking at renunciation, not just giving up your things. We stop following all those old habitual patterns of behaviour that do make us suffer. We have that real determination and confidence that we can work on our mind and eliminate those negative states of mind, and we can decrease the suffering, and eventually we can totally perfect our mind, letting go of all the negative states of mind and developing the positive qualities of mind to the utmost. Renunciation is the determination to be free from suffering and making conscious effort to avoid the causes of suffering. Not giving up the possessions, but giving up our attachment to them. Not exaggerating the positive qualities of things and the negative qualities of things. Having a more realistic view of things. I had a quote of Lamia that I seem to have lost. So that's just karma, that's okay. Any questions, Crystal? Or comments, examples? Or nothing is fine as well. I accept it all. So we've done renunciation, the first principal aspect of the path. The second principal aspect is bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is a Sanskrit word translated as awakened heart. Bodhicitta is developing the altruistic intention of freeing all sentient beings from suffering. So we wish to become enlightened ourselves to benefit all sentient beings. We wish to become enlightened to help all others become enlightened as well. It makes sense. That's good, Crystal. Wisdom of emptiness is the third principal aspect of the path. This is developing the capacity to perceive the true nature of reality, that all things are empty of inherent existence. At present, with our non-awakened mind, with our mind with delusions, we see things as fully, solidly existing in and of themselves from their own side, having their own nature, independent of any other cause and condition or of our mind experiencing them. This false perception of seeing things existing in and of themselves creates confusion in our way of thinking and seeing ourselves and all our actions with the world. How we relate to the world is affected by this basic ignorance of how things truly exist. And this is the root of all our suffering, this ignorance of seeing how things truly exist. When with wisdom of emptiness, we realize that the true nature of phenomena, the way that things truly exist, we see things and people as changing moment to moment, that they are interdependent upon parts, causes, conditions, and our perception and labeling them. This is a very, very brief explanation of the wisdom of emptiness, and it will be something that I will be reflecting upon, I hope, for the whole path until I am enlightened. I haven't realised wisdom of emptiness yet, but every now and then there are little like glimpses of seeing through the crack into what wisdom of emptiness is about. It's our perception, our deluded mind that sees these things as solid and independent. So the wisdom of emptiness marks our achievement of enlightenment, of Buddhahood. But we will talk more about that next week. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the path is presented as Lam Rim. Lam Rim means the graduated path to enlightenment. So all of the Buddha's teachings have been formatted in a step-by-step way. So it's like going from preschool to primary school to high school to university. It's in that stepped way that all the teachings are presented in that way. And this Lamrim presentation contains those three principal aspects that we talked about of renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom of emptiness. The Lamrim was composed by Lama Tsongkhapa, who was a Tibetan scholar and saint in the 14th century. Lama Yeshe said, "Prayer and aspiration are not enough for deep transformation of the mind. Reasoning is necessary." Transformation comes from studying the Lamrim, thinking about the topics, reflecting upon the topics, doing analytical meditation on the topics in the Lamrim. Lama Yeshe said, "In order to solve our problems, we need some experience. Intellectual blah, blah, blah understanding is not enough. When we've had an experience showing that we are really capable of solving our own problems, this encourages us. I can do anything I want when I can really solve my problems." From the Buddhist point of view, that's the start of human liberation. So it's not just intellectual, it's not just reading and intellectualizing it all. We've got to put it into our daily life. It's got to be experiential to be of true benefit. I have my picture of Lama Yeshe over there, and I have to glance over there every now and then to make sure that it's all, he's watching over me. Shane Null says, "Lol." What's the lol for, Shane? Laughing is good. I think a sense of humour is extremely important when we're working on our mind. When you watch some of these great lamas, the truly great teachers who have great realizations and they're enlightened beings, you see that they have a great sense of humour. They're often laughing, giggling. They're very light and joyous. Lama Yeshe certainly was. Shane's studying emptiness currently. That is wonderful, Shane. I am rejoicing that you are studying emptiness. Where are you studying it? Online? Well, I guess it probably is online at the moment. Have you been to VI? Or do you go to another centre? Studying emptiness is wonderful. And you're doing it in an experiential way, I hope, as well. Studying by books. It's wonderful. We're so fortunate that we have such a wealth of amazing teachers, amazing teachings. We've got the internet, YouTube, we've got books, we can have access to the greatest teachers in the world at the snap of our fingers any time of the day or night. We're just really, really fortunate. That's fantastic, Shane. No questions on emptiness tonight for me, okay, Shane? I'm just a baby Buddhist, but I learn a lot from presenting these classes. So I always say, even if no one else benefits, I benefit from presenting these classes. I listen to myself speak, and sometimes I learn things from listening to myself speak, which is interesting. Not much to say about it. It's empty. That's cool, Shane. It is empty. Very, very interesting. Okay, so with a firm grounding in the Lamrim, we're able to work with our mind no matter what's going on in it or around us, which is, that's where the loving our problems like ice cream comes in. I think it's when we have these difficult challenges in life, we see it as a real opportunity to get to know our mind more and to apply all the Buddhist tools. It's meaty. So this Lamrim, there are 3 versions that were composed by Lama Tsongkhapa. One of the versions is about 1,000 pages long. There's a medium length version which is about 200 pages long, and there's a short version in the format of a prayer, which we're going to go through tonight and next week. And this prayer is called the Foundation of All Good Qualities. This prayer or verse outlines the Lamrim teachings. And I did have a link that I wanted to put in the comment bar so that you could refer to this prayer as we go through. We're going to go through verse by verse, just commenting briefly on this prayer. But I could not copy the link because I'm using a Mac here and I'm not used to Macs, and I didn't know how to copy. I would have liked you to have a copy of the prayer in front of you, because I think it helps to have that, the written form, as well as hearing the comments about it. It helps to put more of an imprint in the mind, I think, if you've got both those formats. I'm just seeing if I don't think I can do it right now. I should have thought about this beforehand, how you copy on a Mac, but I didn't. I'm very sorry. If you want to Google Foundation of All Good Qualities, you may come up with it quickly and more cleverly than me. If you put into Google FPMT and then Foundation of All Good Qualities, you should come up. There's a few versions that the FPMT has on the internet. But I will read out each verse anyway, and then just a brief comment. And questions at any time are always welcome as well. I'm just looking up the time. So we can gradually become familiar with the attitudes and actions contained in this prayer, the Foundation of All Good Qualities, and we can make our life more meaningful um, through becoming familiar with the Buddhist teachings in this outline and thinking about reflecting upon them, applying them in our daily life. It certainly helps my life to be more meaningful. It can be used as what they call a glance meditation, where you can meditate on a paragraph at a time. So you read a paragraph from this verse and think about it, check what it means for you, check it against your own life experiences, see if it's logical, analyse what it means and meditate on it, and just really think about, could it enhance my life? And test it out in your daily life. You have to do all those things to get the benefit from it, not just listening. So the Lamrim is in 3 main sections or scopes. Every being that has a mind seeks happiness. We are all the same in that way. And these 3 scopes reflect the 3 levels of Buddhist aspiration based on how this happiness is perceived by the individual. So the 3 scopes are, no, forget that. The motivation of a being of lower scope is to obtain a good rebirth. So that's the first section of the verse. The first scope is to help the people who are interested in obtaining a good rebirth. The being of middle scope understands that all of samsara, or cyclic existence, where we cycle from birth, old age, sickness, death, birth again, doing it all over and over and over again, beginningless and endless time, that's samsara. The being of the middle scope understands that all of samsara is suffering, and their motivation is to achieve freedom from samsara entirely and achieve the liberated state of nirvana. The being of higher scope realizes that the personal happiness of nirvana is not complete without considering the happiness of all other beings. So they seek the liberation of all sentient beings. This is Buddhahood, which they're seeking for the benefit of all sentient beings. So it includes that bodhicitta aspect that we talked about before. You have the wish to become enlightened, to help every sentient being become enlightened as well. So we'll go through the foundation of all good qualities verse by verse, just with a brief commentary of each line in there. The first stanza or verse is: the foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable Guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. So this is the very first verse. So this is preschool, but it's also like the foundation. So very, very important. It's the first step on the path. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable guru. So the Sanskrit word for a spiritual teacher is guru. So this verse is about developing a relationship with a qualified spiritual teacher or a guru to guide us on the path to enlightenment. Although you can go a long way by reading books and meditating by yourself, ultimately Buddhism says that you do need a qualified teacher to guide you on that path. Before you trust in a teacher, you need to check them out very, very carefully so that you know that you can rely on them. There have been teachers, gurus out there who have not been of benefit to their students in different ways. So it's extremely important to check out the teacher. Take a long time to get to know that teacher before you take on a spiritual relationship with that guru. Extremely important. Why do we need a guru? Why can't we do it all by ourselves? Basically, because we're trying to attain enlightenment, we're trying to perfect our mind, and we don't know what that's like at this stage because we haven't done it. We don't have the experience. So if we have a qualified spiritual teacher, a guru, they have that experience. So they can show us through their experience what enlightenment is and how to achieve it. At the same time, there are different levels of teachers, and you may find a guru who is an enlightened being or has spiritual realizations. I think at the same time, it's also very helpful to have teachers who are not as highly realized. I heard a talk once by Alan Wallace, who was an amazing meditation teacher, and he was talking of how beneficial it is to have teachers who are maybe just a step or two ahead of you on the path, as well as having the amazing lamas and qualified gurus like Dalai Lama, Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa. You can have those sorts of teachers, but sometimes you may think they're right up here as far as spiritual attainment compared to me. So while you can learn a lot from them, maybe sometimes it's really helpful to have someone who is closer to your own level and understanding. If you have a teacher who is practicing and is not so highly up there like the Dalai Lama, you can look at this teacher or this Dharma friend and think, I can see that they're practicing well. I can see that it's really benefiting them because they're practicing well. And if they can do it, I can do it as well because I'm not so different to them. So it's a different sort of motivation, I think, when you have those different levels of qualifications in teachers, if that makes sense. You also are more likely to have more personal and direct sort of access to a teacher who is more on your level. It may be someone that it may be another student that you go to Buddhist classes with and you just talk about the teachings to them and you help each other along the way. They say that anyone can be our teacher, our spiritual teacher, as long as we have the right attitude towards them. But teachers are very important. And often lamas talk about how our teacher in preschool or primary school who taught us how to read and write, we should be so, so grateful to them, to those teachers, because that's like the basis, the foundation of so much of our learning comes from us being able to communicate, being able to read and write. So there are different levels of teachers, and we should be grateful for all our teachers. And I often say that our difficult teachers are the ones that we often learn the most from. If you have difficult people in your life, depending on the way you look at them, you can learn an awful lot from them. That's something to reflect upon. So, regarding those different levels of experience of teachers, they say that the minimum a teacher should know more than you. They should have good ethics. They should love teaching and they should be compassionate. That's the minimum, according to Lama Tsongkhapa and according to the great Buddhist teachers. It's greatly meaningful and difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. Precious freedom of this rebirth. Greatly meaningful, difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. So this is all about appreciating, really appreciating this precious human rebirth that we have right now. Since beginningless time, according to the Buddha, we've been circling through the realms of death and rebirth, repeatedly experiencing the whole package of samsaric life problems and suffering over and over again. Since beginningless time, we never have experienced the end of this suffering yet. We've not experienced the everlasting happiness of enlightenment yet. If we achieve enlightenment, which we attain by actualizing the steps of the path, it's a one-time job. Once we're enlightened and we realize everlasting happiness, we never suffer again because our karma is completely purified at that stage. We don't have the seeds of life's problems and suffering in our mental continuum anymore. So that's the ultimate achievement, to perfect our mind, to achieve awakening or enlightenment, sorry. And we have the potential to do that in this precious human rebirth that we have. The Buddha said that there are different realms, including the human realm, animal realm, God realms, and hell realms. These hell realms are different from the Christian type hell realms in that they're not for eternity. If you create the karma to go to or be reborn in a hell realm, that karma will eventually be used up and you'll be reborn again. So it's not hell for ever. But we have been cycling through all these different realms in numberless different bodies. We've been wandering through these samsaric realms, but this time we've achieved the perfect human rebirth, which is extremely difficult to find again, according to the Buddhist teachings. It's hard enough to find an ordinary human rebirth, let alone a perfect human rebirth. So, what's the difference between an ordinary human rebirth and a perfect human rebirth? A perfect human rebirth means that we live in a peaceful place where we have the freedom to choose our religion. We don't live in constant pain and fear. We have a basic level of understanding. There is access to the Dharma, to the teachings of the Buddha, and we've met the Dharma. So when we have all those conditions, this is what's called a precious human rebirth. So when you think about all the people, the population of the world, I don't know the statistics, but we know that so many of those people in the world are starving, or they're living in a war-torn country where they're always subject to violence and attack and fear. People in third world countries, people who have these really harsh conditions, who are just constantly trying to survive, basically. They don't have the opportunity to learn Buddhism. They don't have the opportunity to work on their mind, to work on their spiritual education. All they're doing is trying to find food to eat or trying to survive attack, constantly living in fear. There's so many people like that in the world. So we have to appreciate all these things that we have in this life. We have such an easy life compared to most people in the world. We have the ability to put time and effort into exploring our spiritual side, to checking out the Buddha's teachings if we wish, to work on ourselves, to become a better version of ourselves, to educate ourselves. All these things. This is so precious. And that actually meeting the Dharma, coming into contact with the Buddhist teachings, is, according to the Buddha, what makes this the most precious realm, the most precious life that we could possibly have, because we have the opportunity, we have the potential to achieve enlightenment in this life. And they say there's a analogy in Buddhism that the likelihood of us achieving this precious human rebirth is compared to a blind turtle at the bottom of the deepest ocean of the world. Blind turtle swimming around deepest ocean of the world, somewhere on the top of the ocean, and we know there's so much ocean in this world. Somewhere on the top of the ocean there is a small golden yolk, a golden ring floating on the surface of the water. The chance of that blind turtle surfacing, coming up to breathe, and just accidentally putting his neck through that small yolk that's floating anywhere on the surface of the ocean in the world, the chance of that happening, that's about the likelihood or the chance of us attaining this precious human rebirth. So it's extremely rare, extremely precious. And if my voice sounds a little bit shaky, it's because I'm really cold. I always start out these classes feeling a bit hot, so I open up the window and put the fan on as well, and then I end up getting cold and I'm sort of shaky by the end of the class. But that's okay because it's just my karma. And I still have a precious human rebirth. So I am extremely grateful for that. And we should make the most of this precious opportunity, is what this verse is saying. Just read that line again. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once is greatly meaningful and difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly, day and night, takes its essence. So, in other words, don't squander it, don't waste it. Put as much effort as you can into perfecting your mind. You have the opportunity. Don't waste it. This precious human rebirth also gives us a chance of gaining a good rebirth again. So if we don't become enlightened in this life, we do have the opportunity of practicing being ethical, practicing being a kind, compassionate person. There's all sorts of different tools to work on your mind so that you will be able to attain a good rebirth, another precious human rebirth in this life. So we have that opportunity to gain a good rebirth again, or of attaining enlightenment in this life. So this precious human rebirth offers every possibility. So it's precious. So the Buddha is suggesting that we should use this precious human rebirth, which is so rare, to attain enlightenment. To gain this precious human rebirth that we have created 3 causes in previous lives. The first cause of a precious human rebirth is morality or ethics of avoiding the 10 non-virtues, which are killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and gossip, and covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. So we've practiced virtue. We've also engaged in the practice of the six perfections, as they're known, of morality, generosity, patience, joyous perseverance, concentration, and wisdom, realizing emptiness, and have engaged in the three higher trainings of morality, concentration, and wisdom. So done a lot of, we've put a lot of good effort into being virtuous, to helping other people. We have also had the aspiration to gain a precious human rebirth in our past lives. So we've put in a lot of really good, positive effort in previous lives to get this precious human rebirth now. So good on previous us, and let's not waste it, is what they're saying. So I'm just looking at the time, it's 8:22, and I don't really have time to go on to the next verse, I think. So I think if we've got 8 minutes, I would like to just do a short meditation, just giving us the opportunity of reflecting upon how precious our life is, just being grateful for what we have in this life. And this may help to keep it upmost in our mind that we do have a precious opportunity in this life to be the best version of ourselves we can be. So I just have to get my clock so that I don't go over time. But just get into a comfortable position. And feel the points of contact of our body with that safe, secure, solid surface holding it. Allowing the chair or the cushion or the floor to take the full weight of our body. And just noticing if there's any areas of tension in the body. And imagine that we can breathe into those areas. As we breathe into the areas of tension, imagine suffusing the area with the loving concern of our breath. And as we imagine breathing out from those areas, imagine letting go of that tension or discomfort with each out breath. And just observing the breath for a moment. Just noticing each in and each out breath. And now just asking a question of our heart. What do I have in this life which I'm truly grateful for? Just asking the question, what am I grateful for in this life? And just allowing any answer to arise from your heart, not trying to push it, just asking the question, what am I grateful for? And notice what arises. Don't try to force an answer. An answer doesn't arise, just watch your breath. Just listening in case another answer arises from your heart of what you're grateful for in this precious life. And now, just for a moment, reflecting upon how we could make the most use of this precious opportunity. Again, just allowing an answer to arise from your heart. How can I make the most of this precious life that I have? And if there's been any benefit, any insight from this very brief reflection, may it linger on after the meditation and help you in your daily life to make the most of this precious opportunity that we have. May that help us to be happier, more kind, compassionate people, wiser people. And may that spread out to help all those around us to be happier, kinder, wiser people as well. And just feeling the points of contact of our body with that solid, secure surface holding it. Feeling the touch of our clothes on our skin and the air on our skin. Noticing the noises inside the room and the noises outside the room. And when you're ready, feeling joyful and relaxed, gently open your eyes. Give your body a stretch. So I just went 2 minutes over. I'm sorry for that. And I hope that I may see you next week. Same time, same computer. And maybe I'll see you out at Vajrayana Institute in 10 weeks' time, the 3rd of August onwards, which would be wonderful. And I wish you all a peaceful, meaningful life. And thank you for helping me tonight. And Sue's just popped in to say, enjoyed doing that meditation with you. I'm so glad you could do that, Sue. And thank you as well, Shane. And thank you, Crystal. And I hope I see you around again soon. Thank you. Bye.